France is a collectivistic and high-context communication culture, meaning that when communicating, the listener already has an idea of what is being said and does not need much background information. The French culture is one of the indirect verbal style. They are more suggestive than direct. There are no long explanations in their conversations. They are short, concise, and understood. Conversations at times can be direct and sometimes perceived as rude, but the French do not show much emotion. Another verbal style used by the French is succinct. This style refers to the amount of talk that is valued in different cultures. The succinct style includes a lot of pauses, silences, and understatements. The French also use contextual and affective styles of communication. The contextual style stresses the speaker and the listener's roles based on hierarchy and status. It is not based on individuals. This style again emphasizes hierarchy, status orientation, formality, and asymmetrical power relationships. The last verbal style is the affective verbal style, which takes the perspective of the recipient of the message. It is focused more on relationship building and interpersonal processes. It is not so much focused on the outcome of the communication, but rather the process. Effective speakers perform on an intuitive sense and are non-verbally expressive. The French culture uses the affective verbal style. Regarding nonverbal communication, which is also known as analogic communication, is kinesics behavior, or body movements, which vary from culture to culture. These behaviors are broken into 5 broad categories: emblems, illustrators, affect displays, regulators, and adapters. Emblems and illustrators are used differently from culture to culture. However, most people tend to use them for some kind of communication process. Emblems and illustrators can be used for greetings, departures, insults, obscenities, to fight, or in a romantic fashion. Emblems are hand gestures that have meaning. For instance, in France, placing a finger under the eye means "I don't believe you." In France, when greeting someone, it's not polite to extend your hand to a superior individual. Affect displays are facial expressions of emotions. The face shows the highest form of communication and shows many other nonverbal behaviors. The French can be very reserved, which can be interpreted as rude. This is noticed in their facial expression. It's not because the French is rude, but because the French only smile when they have things to smile about. Regulators are nonverbal acts and behaviors that control communication between people, such as stance, distance, and eye contact. Again, rules for this form of nonverbal communication vary from culture to culture. In France, if you do not make direct eye contact with the person you are conversing with, it can be viewed as though you are putting down on that person. Space is essential to the French. If 2 strangers are talking, it requires more space between them as opposed to 2 people that know each other or that are acquainted. And that
Jamaica's verbal communications. The official language of Jamaica is English. Jamaicans primarily speak an English African Creole language known as Jamaican Patois. Even though it is not standard English, Americans can still communicate effectively with them if you listen closely. Jamaicans speak very quickly and are very animated when speaking. Jamaicans love to laugh out loud, and their laughs are loud. Some Jamaicans are very aggressive when speaking, and some feel when speaking with them you need to be assertive and direct in order to get your voice heard. Jamaicans are considered to have an indirect communication style. They are more suggestive than direct. When Jamaicans conduct business, they tend to be quite formal, addressing one another by the gender title, Mr. or Mrs., or if they're known as Doctor, Professor, etc. Jamaicans is considered a collectivistic and is very high context in culture. They are also considered to be succinct, which means their style uses understatement, pauses, and silence. Jamaicans use the contextual style of communicating, which is based on a hierarchical social order, and a role-centered language. They also use an effective style of communication. Their language is process-oriented and is receiver-focused. Now I will speak on nonverbal communications in Jamaica. The first set is emblems and illustrators in Jamaica. They usually greet, starting with a handshake. During the greeting process or while conversing, men often pat each other's arms or shoulders. Women may hug and kiss on the cheek, starting with the right cheek first, once a friendship has been established. A man greeting a woman at a first meeting, a handshake will do. Family, friends, and close acquaintances usually share a light kiss on the cheek. Greeting females with a hug or a kiss on the cheek in the workplace is never done. With affects display. In the workplace, depending on the environment, flirting between male and female employees is common, and rather than offending, generally promotes a very casual, friendly environment. It may even involve hugging but never kissing. On the social scene, it is common for males to greet females with a hug and a kiss on the cheek. Female-to-female greetings can follow this pattern as well. Male-to-male greetings tend to have a high-five shake or simply a pat on the back depending on circumstances. The tone of voices in business tends to be controlled by both sexes, while on the social scene the males get very loud. With regulators, Jamaicans usually use direct eye contact, and they share the sense of space at arm's length. Getting closer leads itself to a familiar place, and it could offend. With dress, punctuality, and formality, dressing for the workplace is largely dependent on the industry or environment. The financial sector, for example, requires a shirt and tie. A manager is surely expected to wear a suit. When in doubt, ask. This can be readily discussed to be an inappropriate dress could create problems. Service industries wanting to display a high level of professionalism often requires that a prescribed uniform be worn. Management staff is seen differently and should wear either a shirt or a tie or a suit. As Jamaicans does not experience several seasonal changes, dress is the same throughout the year.
In Taiwan, the business culture has become more westernized than in the past. When conflicts arise in the workplace, they are dealt with direct communication and in private. If these are not resolved, a third-party mediator is involved to resolve these conflicts. Hierarchy and decision-making is abided by strictly. All decisions come from the top down. Being an employee, if you do not understand a decision, you go to your coworkers versus your superiors, which is looked as bad employment. Conversation topics that can occur during business meetings or even over dinner can be weather. For me, living in the north, I can discuss how seasons change and how the site is snow, where Taiwan has not ever experienced snow nor seasonal changes. Food and entertainment can be another good topic. You can ask for local recommendations, which relates to them on a personal level. Politics is a big no-no. That is not a topic you ever want to discuss nor bring up during a Taiwanese business meeting or dinner. Relationship building is also important to the Taiwanese people. Ganchi, meaning connection, involves them relating to you on a personal level and getting to know you better. Personal relationships are preferred when doing business. They would rather do business with a friend than a stranger. Motivating your colleagues. If you're the superior in a Taiwanese culture, you want to set the example. You stay late until the work is done, not leaving at 4 o'clock when the clock tells you to go. Another way to motivate them is treating them to their entertainment, like the karaoke bars. Shows that you appreciate their hard work. After lunch naps are another way that Taiwanese people are accustomed to. They like to recharge and are considered hard workers. Their business view is making as much as possible as fast as possible. Professional dress and conservatively in the business world is preferred, and in the social network, conservative dress is needed. They are very sensitive to titles and all names regarding professional names like doctor, you need to use the word doctor and then their family name. You will not receive their first name unless you have achieved that relationship status. In punctuality, deadlines are strict. Don't be late for work, don't be late for a meeting, and never cancel. Showing patience during a meeting is important. Remember, the Taiwanese culture values relationship first before a deal is done. Don't be surprised during a meeting if you see a handshake representing a multi-million-dollar deal. Normal contracts and with a signature is common, but not always a custom. Some culture norms that can be seen is a handshaking or a nod for a casual meeting, but bowing shows more respect. Please follow the lead of the person that is hosting you for the meeting. Close space, known as intimate zone, is less than an arm length apart. The reason for this is the environment. Everything is close in Taiwan, so they speak closely and more into your personal bubble. Eye contact with limited facial expressions is needed. Touching is common once that personal relationship has been achieved. Otherwise, you don't ever touch the shoulders, nor you don't point or touch anything towards the feet. That's considered a little nasty. Emotions are stoic. Taiwanese people show little emotion, but when they do, they will verbalize it, usually from disapproval of products and service, and they will demand an explanation and fixing of what the problem was. Another point that Taiwanese people do is gift giving. They expect to receive a gift from the person that's visiting their country. A good way is if you come from the California side, you could bring a bottle of wine. One thing to remember though, when bringing a gift, they won't open it in your presence, and bringing anything that resembles a cutting tool to the Taiwanese people symbolizes cutting off a friendship. So that's a big no if you're just establishing a relationship. That's Taiwanese.